Hello and welcome to the Catch a Lift Coaches Corner. I am CAL lead coach Melissa Luke, and this week I am honored and excited to welcome CAL veteran Amber Dach to today's show. Amber is a CAL veteran athlete and a CrossFit Box owner. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coaches Corner. Amber, welcome. Thanks very much for being here. We're so excited for you to be here. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Very excited to get started here. Let's start today, Amber, and talk some about your military service. Now, you joined the military a few days after 9/11. What drove you to enlist?
So I was 16 from a small town and had big dreams of going into Intel. And I had been talking to a lot of kind of mentors. And at the time, they said the only way to do that was to join military Intel, join the service. At the time, the three-letter agencies weren't hiring and they didn't have a big budget. So the Army became my path. Hold on just a second. Sorry, technical difficulty. So the Army became my path. So I turned 17 a couple days after 9/11, but 9/11 happened and my parents asked me to kind of take pause and think about my decision. I did. I convinced them this was still my path. And so went on to join at the ripe old age of 17.
That's awesome. I joined when I was 17 too, and 9/11 was definitely a big driving factor for that. When you joined, Amber, did you join with the intention? The wars hadn't started yet immediately, but they're going to start. It was pretty clear. Did you join with the intention to go to war?
Absolutely not. I joined, again, with the intention to go into Intel, and in my young brain, maybe I didn't put the two and two together, that Intel supports wartime activities. Obviously, my parents knew best, asking me to kind of pause and think. But no, my intent was to go to college, get a poli-sci degree, marry that up with my Army Intel training, and go off to a three-letter agency. It became very real to me when I went to AIT. This is late 2002. I joined the National Guard, but we had a formation where everyone was getting their active duty orders, and they called my name, and I was like, "Wait, what? No, I'm National Guard. I'm going to UW-Madison." And I did. I had gotten orders for Afghanistan, so I was able to make it home and spend a couple of weeks with my family. But then January 2003, we shipped to Afghanistan right away, and I think that was a wake-up call.
Oh, absolutely. I bet. So, you go to Afghanistan, very shortly after, joining the Army. What type of work as Intel were you doing?
So I was an all-source analyst. We use all types of sources. We use our human sources, our signals intelligence, imagery. Now, fast forward, a lot more internet, open source type information. We collate it and we make the best assessment. So basically our decision makers or our operators give us a problem and we try to give them the best assessment. Typically it is supporting a find, fix, finish type of cycle. That finish word usually has some sort of a connotation. It doesn't necessarily mean kinetic, right? The finish could be disrupting a network or doing something like that. It could be locating something or someone. But yeah, we're supporting that find, fix, finish sort of cycle, depending on what the problem is.
Okay. Could you kind of walk us through, Amber, what was the typical day like in Afghanistan for you, with the work that you were doing? What did that look like?
Yeah, so in 2003, it was a little bit different. So we were new. We had just come off of, Operation Anaconda. So we had to kind of keep up with the speed of war, and every day was a little bit different. One day we could be supporting, finding high value targets. One day it could be supporting doing sort of an assessment on like a force protection type of mission, right? Maybe a friendly base. Maybe we were going to push more people in and we were going to have them stationed at a base and doing an assessment on sort of the vulnerabilities of that location. We did a lot of assessments on some of our friendly high value politicians would come in during that time, doing route studies,
Right.
depending on elections or kind of big ticket events happening. So it was pretty fluid, depending on kind of the speed of war that day.
Oh, I bet. So, I think had well, I'm going to call it incredibly unique. I've never had the pleasure of talking to someone that did work like you did in the service. Could you talk to us, Amber, about PR being, personnel recovery, hostage recovery? Could you talk to us about that work a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't start off there. I kind of started off as your normal intel analyst, supporting whatever mission needed to be supported. I went on from there, kind of working detainee operations, and then I transitioned into a civilian role that focused on PR, hostage recovery. We call it personnel recovery, but it makes it easier for everyone to understand as hostage recovery. So same type of process, targeting process that we use for any intel operation, kind of gathering all the information that we can. And first and foremost, our mission is to locate a hostage. For me, I worked in the CENTCOM area of responsibility with a focus of Afghanistan and Pakistan. So almost all of my cases were either captured or being held in that region. So our whole purpose in intel is to find them. And then I like to call it hand over a menu of options to our government, right? And we could return our hostages either diplomatically or through military operations. There's kind of a wide range of ways that we can get those hostages back. And that's not for me to decide, but our whole goal was to try to locate them and give them options.
Okay. So you were definitely involved, both, while you were active duty and National Guard as a civilian in some high profile work. Can you talk to us a little bit about being in that position, either as a civilian or as a soldier, but where there's also, there's political pressure, there's a lot of, political, just stuff going on. It's a hot issue.
Yeah, it still continues to be. So I would say we would work all cases. We would work civilians that go missing, anyone from like a non-government organization that happens to be there, all the way to military service members. When military service members go missing in a war zone, that tends to get a lot of attention.
Right.
One of the most frustrating parts of hostage recovery is word typically gets out of circumstances of capture is kind of what we call it, right? Whether you're, again, a nonprofit organization there or whether you're a military service member there, your circumstances of capture seem to affect the popular opinion of whether or not we should recover you or how we should handle your case. In our view, in our world of hostage recovery, circumstances of capture have no bearing on how we do our work, right? Any American deserves to come home regardless of how they ended up in their situation.
Right.
So yes, we have worked some very high profile cases where it may not have been the most popular opinion of what circumstances of capture was. However, we believed, like, let's just get them home and figure out the rest after. Another thing that complicates recovery cases is if we assess that hostage might be being held in a sovereign nation, right? Let's just take a hypothetical situation that, let's say, a military service member is brought across the border into Pakistan, our allied. We can't just go into a sovereign nation unilaterally and do a recovery operation. It's a lot more difficult than that. Right. So the politics certainly complicate hostage recovery when it comes to some of our allied nations.
Absolutely. Can you talk to us a little bit? So you've done this work, both as a soldier in the military, now continuing kind of in the civilian sect. What was that kind of timeline like for you, or going from a soldier to a civilian in intel? What did that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, so I had a little bit of overlap. I was typically, or I had sworn into the National Guard, but because of 9/11, I ended up on active duty orders for almost 5 years in one way or another, active duty special work or deployments. So I went from the Pentagon to Gitmo to CENTCOM. By the time I got to CENTCOM, I was in the reserves and then still doing intel as a civilian. So I sort of sat in the same desk chair for 16 days out of the month or more than that. And I finally said, listen, I got to pick one. This is becoming too hard to balance. I ultimately went with the civilian job because I believed so dearly in the hostage recovery mission. And I also liked the flexibility of being able to pick my deployments. I deployed more as a civilian than I did in the Army, but I got to pick and choose sort of my dates, which is a huge factor for anyone that's been in the service, kind of knows.
Oh my gosh.
What I'm
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Could you,
So that's when I kind of transitioned to just civilian intel work.
okay. Could you talk to us a little bit about maybe then the differences between like deployments, when you were a soldier during the intel and then as a civilian doing that deployed still, what does that look like to be a deployed civilian in a capacity like you were?
Sure. Yeah. I think in hindsight, looking back, I mean, there's some pretty stereotypical differences. Like obviously, like I'm wearing the uniform when I'm in the Army deployed, right? And there's a rank structure and a way that you communicate with that rank structure that as a civilian, I had a little bit more freedom with being able to speak my opinion. And as an intel analyst, that's pretty important, right? Can you imagine the difference between an E4 walking in and talking to a general about her assessment and then civilian walking in talking to a general about her assessment? I still give that general the same amount of respect, the respect he deserves,
Right.
but it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure.
So that was a big difference. Again, obviously the flexibility with deployments was huge. But honestly, there's so many more similarities just being a woman in general. It doesn't matter if you're wearing a uniform or not. Just deployment woes as a woman,
Right.
knows no uniform.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit, and maybe to that, Amber, like you said, as a female, like you said, I mean, you experience a lot of things that are going to be similar, whether you are a civilian or you are wearing a uniform as a soldier. What was it kind of like for you to be deployed as a woman in these areas? Very masculine environments and such. What was it like?
Yeah, I think that experience starts at basic training, and we all see it in our headlines, with women going through special forces training, and we talk about double standards.
Right.
I've always been one. I never wanted to give anyone a reason to give me a double standard, right? Like
Right.
at basic and AIT, I wanted to score the men's standard, not the female standard.
Right.
I did not believe in a double standard there. So that's always been in the back of my head. However, when you get into the war zones or the combat zones, it's in your face. My first deployment, we were some of the first 5 females in Afghanistan. There's no female bathrooms. There's no female hygiene products. Those aren't even a consideration either. Like they're not on the packing
Right.
list.
Yeah. Right.
Try finding female hygiene products in Afghanistan. Not fun.
Yeah.
Some of our coalition peers, my intel coalition peers, would refuse to deal with me until I went and got my male major. I always had to fight to get this respect. My male major wasn't even an intel guy. He doesn't know the job.
Right.
I'm the one that knows the job. So now I have to have this man speak for me. So that was frustrating. On the way to Afghanistan, this is early 2003. We were doing this big push, and if you remember Iraq, the big push was happening into Iraq at the time.
Yep.
So our plane broke down in Spain, and they had all put us up in this airplane hangar. Couldn't think of the word hangar, like big open bay. I don't know, 200 bunks. We're sleeping one night, and a big group of rowdy Marines come in. They're coming back from Afghanistan, and they had had alcohol for the first time in a couple of months. And before you knew it, all 5 of us women had drunken Marines on top of us. So when you think about logistics for females deploying, that wasn't considered.
Right.
That you better believe that next night we had different lodging.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't be a factor.
Right.
It shouldn't be a factor.
Yeah.
In Gitmo, I was asked to do interrogation support to sit in front of detainees of a certain nationality because they would respond differently to women, which I complied. But in hindsight, I'm like, man, like, I don't, there's double standards,
Yeah.
right? I've talked to you about, briefing these senior officials. It doesn't matter if I was in a uniform or not. I always felt like I had to sort of earn that respect a little bit more than my male counterparts. And I could go on and on and on. The next trip to Afghanistan, I was issued a rape whistle, so I could defend myself. They had codes on the female bathrooms, right? So now I have to remember all these codes depending on what base I'm on, so I can go to the bathroom in the middle of the night without being in fear.
Right.
Coming back from hostage recovery, one of my jobs was to debrief returnees. I wasn't allowed to see one of my biggest cases for days because they weren't sure how he'd react to a woman, even though I was the only one that had done the job for so many years. So yeah, I mean, and I guess the one last, I could go on and on and on, right? But the last one I'll leave with you is I was getting ready to become an E7. I'd done 9 years. I was 6 months pregnant. And of course, to get your E7, you have to go to ANOC. Well, my commander asked, hey, you get reservations for ANOC, like what's going on? You getting orders for those? And I kind of looked at him and he's like, oh, by the way, you're late on your PT test. Like you need to go get that scheduled too. And I'm like looking at myself, I'm like, kind of a PT stud, but I'm also pregnant. And I think that was sort of my last straw. And he told me, once you take care of that condition of yours, make sure you get signed up for ANOC. I'm like, my pregnancy?
That's so cringeworthy. Yeah. Oh, it's so cringeworthy.
So yeah, I mean, I could go on and on and on, and I don't want to sit here and bash the double standards, but I'm just trying to highlight that it is real,
right?
And it's not every day. I worked with plenty of very respectful people, and felt like an equal for a lot of years too. But these isolated incidents, I think, are worthy to bring up.
They are, and they certainly stick with you, for in some degree or way, and obviously to different degrees for everyone. But I mean, they certainly stick out in your mind, and they are a very real part of for our female service members and just deployed females in general that are doing this work. I mean, it's a part of it, and it deserves and should be talked about and not censored. So thank you for sharing that stuff with us, Amber.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to ask you about, so you described it to me as someone one day, they put a PVC pipe in your hand, for an overhead squat. Let's start talking about fitness a little bit and how you were introduced to CrossFit.
Yeah, so Afghanistan, one of my coworkers, he was a CrossFit level 1 guy, said, I see you working out, you're running, you're lifting all the time. Have you ever tried this CrossFit? And I was like, no, thanks. And so he handed me this PVC pipe and he's trying to teach me this overhead squat, in which I couldn't do. I was sweating and I couldn't do a squat. And so of course it pissed me off, and I don't like doing things that I'm not good at. So I quit. I was like, I don't ever want to see this again. A couple of months later, I was like, you know what? Second thought, maybe I should do things that challenge me. I'm going to try this CrossFit thing out again. So I found a box in the DC area. I gave it another try, and been addicted ever since.
That's awesome. And it's very cool. You found that in Afghanistan. What year was that, Amber? Kind of what time frame are we talking?
2012. It would have been 2012.
Okay. What was it about CrossFit though that captivated you so much?
So many things. So the sense of community, one, and especially now that I'm out, I look for that sort of brotherhood, that camaraderie, that community. And CrossFit is that first and foremost. The empowerment, there's something to be said for putting some heavy weight over your head and knowing that you did that all by yourself. Is very empowering. And the challenge, the simple challenge of keeping my mind healthy and my body healthy. I have always looked to fitness one way or another to keep me sane and stable.
I get that.
So, yeah. So that's that's given me that through the years too.
How has your fitness journey kind of evolved through the years? Because, you described yourself as a PT stud. You were obviously working out hard long before 2012. How has it evolved through these years, Amber?
Yeah, so I started off as a runner. Like 2 days before basic, I was downstate running for track and cross country. That got me through my first deployment to Afghanistan in '03. Obviously, it has evolved to CrossFit, but I think that time period of '03, '04 and fitness was sort of a turning point for me. When I came back, and I might be kind of getting ahead of our conversation here,
That's all
when I
right.
came back from Afghanistan the first time, I literally got dropped off at college. I was late. My mom was actually attending classes for me. Don't tell anyone.
I love it.
So I show up at the dorm room, literally still in uniform with Afghan moon dust all over everything. And there's girls running around like, what color do I paint my nails? And I was like, where's my weapon?
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So I found myself in a very, very dark place very fast. I found my way to overeating. I was a closet eater. I gained 50 pounds in no time. I found my way to over drinking, blackout drunk every night just to fall asleep. I found myself very depressed. I found myself not sleeping. I found myself taking very risky behaviors with men. Anything that I could do to sort of numb and not think about the pain. In hindsight, it was pain. I didn't know it was pain then, but that's what it was.
Right.
I'd fallen so far away from fitness during that time in my life. I mean, trying to run with an extra 50 pounds on your body is not fun. Trying to run with a hangover, not fun.
Yeah.
And one day I woke up and I was like, I'm going to run a marathon. And so I started turning it back around, and fitness straightened me back up. Fitness straightened me back up pretty quick. I often think about where I'd be if I hadn't made that decision.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think so many of us can relate to to that, not knowing what it is, but it is pain, and it's, we're trying to run from it or mask it, and we're not even able to identify kind of what it is in the beginning and what's happening, and it's incredibly scary. So let's talk about that, a little more. A lot of female veterans, they get home and I've described it to people as you slowly stop raising your hand, that you're a veteran, that, you're a combat veteran. And you touched on, that kind of early transitioning home. How was the experience for you to finally find community? And, fitness was obviously a big part of that, but I mean, how did you get to that point where you were able to go back out? Yes, I'm a female combat veteran. How did you kind of start to find that place again?
Yeah, that's a hard question. It's a long journey.
Yeah.
I think back, that was, 18 years ago for me. And it's not till really the last 5 years that I think I found my voice. I think it starts with confidence. And sometimes that doesn't come without age too. I think a lot about, I was very
Yeah.
young, and I think you were
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah.
So age helps. I think being a mother has kind of put me in and I think you can relate here too, is it's not just about you anymore either. So you gotta find your confidence, whether it's for you or for somebody else. You gotta put it together.
Yeah.
And I think what did it the most for me is when we serve, we have this sense of service, right? We're serving something that's bigger than us. And sometimes we may not agree with what that is.
Right.
But we did it.
Yeah.
And when we leave that leaves a big hole. What's our purpose? What's our identity? What's our sense of service? Who are we serving anymore?
Yeah.
And yes, I serve my kids. That's different. That's not quite the same.
Right.
And so I think in the last 4 or 5 years is when I really started exploring, okay, what's important to me and who can I serve? And that's when I started thinking about vets, trying to get a community of vets together. That's when I became comfortable with identifying as a veteran myself. Like my kids didn't even know I was in the Army until they were like in the second grade. I just didn't even tell them.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the last 4 or 5 years, I think really exploring how I wanted to serve and what that looked like is kind of how I found my voice.
Yeah. Um, oh yeah, so much of that, rings true to me. Right. I was very young too when I got home and turned 21. And I always say, I lost nearly a decade, to post-traumatic stress and pain and chronic pain and different things. But right, it was the birth of my daughter that did really make me want to have more for my life and more to show her. So I think a lot of us can definitely empathize with that and feel that. What would you say to female veterans, who feel like they don't have a voice, after service, and they just, it's hard sometimes. We look at, I think, a lot of our different, veteran kind of service groups, and it's obviously largely men. It's a female veterans in general are a small population. Combat wounded females, I mean, now we're getting smaller yet again. What would you say to them, or what advice do you have for them?
So I looked it up today. The newest stat is 9.4% of veterans are females. And as you said, we just go lower from there when it comes to combat, which is incredibly small.
Yeah.
I think some of the the message I have, I guess, is you're deserving. One, you're a badass. Two, you're beautiful. You have a voice. You have something to offer. You don't have to be isolated. You're not alone. You have an identity that's even outside of being a veteran. You have something in there that's special to give and share. Figure out what that is and do it. Don't choose to be isolated. And I think that is what so many of us do for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to take this moment to, if we have any catch a lift veteran women listening right now, I'd invite all of you. We have a women's fitness initiative in Catch a Lift, and it's designed, to further empower our combat wounded women, using fitness, nutrition, community, and mental wellness. We have a private Facebook page, with just our female members, and if you would like to be a part of that, you can email wfi@catchaliftfund.com, and we'll get you guys any additional resources you need, get you on the page. But like Amber said, it's at some point too, we need to choose to not be isolated, and it's up to each of us to now help build that community and lift our sisters up. So definitely thank you, Amber, for looking to do that in your own community, and want to talk about that a little bit. So talk to me about the idea of your box, which you would go on to open. Like, when did this come into your mind that you wanted to open up a CrossFit box?
I'd say about 4 years ago. Again, kind of when I was going on that journey of how I can best serve. Kids are my passion, and then the veterans community is also a passion. So what took so long is waiting for a location that was near our school system here in Byron.
Okay.
So that happened to pop up right in the middle of COVID. And my husband and I talked. I was like, this is probably not the greatest time to start a business. But it's really been actually the best time to take the risk and to do this.
That's so cool. That's so cool. So, and the name of the box, Kinetic Grit Fitness. You had a grand opening this past weekend. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. I think too, like I didn't have the forethought that the grand opening would be 9/11 weekend, but that is so full circle to me because
oh my gosh,
I literally was at the high school across the school when 9/11 happened. you know, 400 meters away from my gym.
Oh
And
my
so to
gosh,
be able
wow.
to open the gym after,
That's incredible.
yeah, the journey brought me right back.
Wow.
So that was pretty special for me personally. We've been open a month. We hit 40 members this week. It's really exciting. And about half of those are kids. And I'm
Oh,
loving,
that's awesome. Oh my
yes,
gosh.
kids and then like brand new people to CrossFit. And it's already, I've been open a month and it's been so exciting to see what it's doing for people. I'm watching this family be built. I'm watching people lose weight. I'm watching people gain confidence. It's already been this amazing journey. So yeah, we had the grand opening this last weekend. I found my way to you guys right before then. One of the things we pride ourselves here is trying to offer fitness as affordable as possible. So we do a free community workout every Saturday.
It's awesome.
The grand opening took the place of that, so I still kept it a free event. We had such a great turnout that we were able to raise $1,000 for Cal,
Oh, that's
which is
terrific.
pretty incredible. So yeah, it was a great turnout. All of our friends and family, both old and new, showed up and had a good rainy COVID weekend.
Heck yeah. So I know you said it feels kind of like full circle for you. I mean, that's just incredible, just personally, what was it like to, go from this idea that you had and to watch it come into, full fruitation this past weekend? I mean, what were the feelings? What were the emotions kind of behind that for you?
So I'm learning the older I get, the harder it is for me to stay composed. I had to fight back tears several times. And I think it was when I see, especially I have one family that it's a father, a son, and a daughter. There's three of them that work out there every day. And just to turn and see the kids competing, or to turn and see a person do a thruster for the first time. And, it's very overwhelming to see it all happening.
Oh, I bet. I bet. So I'm guessing they are, but is your family involved in fitness too, in CrossFit?
Yeah. So my sister's a newbie. She lives out in Colorado. She just started a year ago and she's super pissed. She can't get a pull up yet. I told her to trust the process. It
Yes.
took me, 3 years, I think. So you got to trust it. But yeah, we've got 5 kids collectively. Our 2 teenagers are in there every day and really becoming leaders in the gym, which is really cool to see.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah, our younger ones are dabbling. They like to play on the rings and do some box jumps here and there, but everyone's in there and it's really cool. My husband was not a CrossFitter until about a month ago, and now he is all in.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
awesome.
we're laying in bed and I'm catching him on videos. I'm like, what are you watching? He's like, YouTube videos on how to do muscle ups. I'm like, well, I can
Oh
teach you
my gosh.
that. He's like, no, I gotta watch the video. So that they've been bit with the bug.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So can you kind of talk to us all? We obviously have, a lot of parents, in Catch a Lift, and, what advice do you have, or how can people get their families involved, get their children involved?
Yeah, I think it is more important than ever. COVID is doing something pretty powerful to our children, right? They're in front of screens all the time. They're not in sports. They're not getting the camaraderie. They're not getting coaching from other adults. They're not getting routine. I believe so much in sports, and they're not getting any of it, which as a parent really scares me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think finding things like CrossFit, and maybe CrossFit's not your gig, but finding things like yoga or some other local activity is so important for the kids to do. Again, for the sense of team, to build their confidence, and to give them a time to blow off steam. I'm telling you, I've got a kid class at 3 and at 3:45. They come in there and it's like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's complete chaos for like the first 15 minutes. They have
Oh,
so much energy to burn off from,
yeah.
sitting there all day. So it's super important to keep them involved. And I'm telling you, I think too, it is super special to see families in there together. I love it when moms and dads are in there working out and their little ones are watching. Last night I had a 2-year-old in there trying to do little jumps on a 45
Oh,
pound plate because daddy was. That's something the kids are watching.
yeah. Yeah, they absolutely are. And I'm certainly a big advocate for that, just families being involved in it in whatever capacity. And, even if they're too young, they mimic what they see. I've seen that in my own family. My daughter, she's always been, in the gym with me. And, even if she's just coloring or something, but she'll start jumping around or moving and they pick
Yep.
up on it. And it's so cool to see. So I've never had the pleasure of, witnessing or being a part of like a CrossFit Kids class. Can you kind of tell us about like what goes on in it?
Yeah. So my 3 o'clock is like a high school kid. So it's more of a hybrid, right? I still try to make it fun for them. I do more sports related drills for speed and agility. But it's right after that where I've got my kids in there. I've become an expert on CrossFit Kids games, like pizza tag and, um, doing things like that. So 15, 20 minutes is just fun, blowing off steam and having fun. They're doing burpees and they don't even know it,
Yeah.
They're getting fitness and they don't even know it. So by the time game warm-ups are done, they've had a pretty good workout already. If I can teach them any technique, like we're good.
Yeah. That's just
Um,
bonus.
yeah, but it's cool to see them kind of gravitate towards people the same fitness level as themselves and pushing each other and challenging themselves in a way that I can't do for them. That's something that they find themselves, which is pretty cool. But it's cool to watch
Absolutely.
them learn new skills and find the confidence and uh, zone out. You see something in their eyes that they just go somewhere else, and it's cool to watch it happen.
That's so awesome. So you guys, the box is located in Byron, Illinois. Is that
It is small town Byron, Illinois.
what is the size of Byron? I'm not
Oh
familiar with it.
gosh, I think it was like one blinky light when I was in high school. Now we have three
Okay.
stoplights. So like 2000, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
So
pretty
are
small.
are you seeking to find other veterans in your community to come and join the box, Amber? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, yes. So that has been a challenge. I know there are other veterans in our generation in the community, but as we talked about, I don't think they're quite there yet, either identifying as such, or maybe just not into CrossFit.
Yeah.
Either way,
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been struggling reaching out. I think our older veteran population here are more active than our younger
Okay.
veteran population. But I've connected with a couple of them, and I had one guy that if you're listening, I hope you come back in the door. He said, I love lifting weights to really prevent my PTSD flare-ups. I want to
Yeah.
lift heavy things to get rid of some of this anger. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I hear you. Come do it.
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, I am definitely seeking local veterans. I'm trying to link them up with Catch a Lift. You guys have such an amazing program to offer. Especially if people have lost their jobs in times like these and their financial issues, should be no excuse really. I
Right.
mean, we've got opportunities out there to reach out and grab and get active.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And definitely, again, encourage anybody to check out Catch a Lift. You can find us online, catchaliftfund.org. Amber, where can people find the box online, or how can they find you guys?
Yep, kineticgritcrossfit.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram under the same name too.
Awesome. Amber, what's it mean to you to be a Catch a Lift Fund veteran athlete?
This is new for me. I'm excited to be part of your family. again, it's just building a sense of community. It's somewhere for me to go to find local veterans. Now that I have found my voice, maybe my husband is not so happy I found my voice so loud. Him not being a vet, I can only talk to him so much about some things, and he listens and he understands. Same with my family. They're all very, what's the word I'm looking for? Sensitive or supportive.
Right.
But it's not until you talk to a fellow vet that you're speaking the same language and you can understand each other's feelings. So it's pretty awesome to get to know you guys that way. It's pretty awesome to find female vets.
Yes.
It's pretty awesome to find vets that are into fitness. So for me, this is like the most exciting thing that's happened in a couple of months. This is really cool.
Oh my gosh. Well, we're so happy, that you found Catch a Lift, and, we're so glad that you could be here with us today and tell this, your incredible journey. Thank you, Amber. Thank you for sharing with us today. Thank you for sharing, your story and your light with us. That's it for this week's episode of Coach's Corner. We will be back next Wednesday at 1 Eastern with another new episode. Thank you again, Amber, so much. And we wish you the very best with the box. And, we're definitely looking forward to seeing, you in the box as this goes forward and everything that you'll bring to our veteran community. Thank you, ID Technology, for your continued support of Catch a Lift, the website, the landing zone, the Coach's Corner. Huge thank you to Lynn Coughlin, Henry Pomper, Kaylee Nasiri for your continued support of this podcast and helping make it possible, and the entire Catch a Lift team. If there are any veteran members joining us today that would like to jump on and talk with Amber and I for a few more minutes, just leave your name in the comment box and we'll get you guys a link over. And until next week, keep it real and stay Cal strong.